Hello, welcome to the video. In this question, we're given the equation x equals negative 2, and we're asked to draw out the graph of that equation. So there's our equation, x equals negative 2. One way we can always begin drawing a graph is to set up our t-table of values, where we put x on one side, our independent variable, and then y on the other side. Normally, when we set up our t-table, we choose 3 values to plug in for x, and then we see what the equation tells us y should be if we plugged in those values for x. In this case, though, our equation has been very specific. It's basically telling us, when it says x equals negative 2, it's telling us x has to be negative 2. X can't be anything else. So when we're trying to come up with 3 points to plug in for x, we're not allowed to choose, as we might normally have, 0, 1, and 2. The only thing we can choose for x is negative 2. So we have to plug in negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. Now we go through over and say, well, what points would I like to put for y? Normally, I look at the equation and say, okay, if I've got a negative 2 for x, what does y need to be? Well, this equation here tells us nothing about y. In other words, the equation's saying, it doesn't really matter to me what y is. Pick whatever you like for y. So we can pick anything we want here. We might go to those normal values that we like to pick of 0, 1, and 2, or you could pick 50, 100, and negative 35. Anything you want. This equation has no y in it, which means we are free to choose anything we like for y. I'll go ahead and put in those values that we like, 0, 1, and 2. Once we've done this, we can construct the ordered pairs we need to complete our graph. So we've got negative 2, 0, negative 2, 1, and negative 2, 2. So to make our graph, notice the x is always on the horizontal axis, the y is always on the vertical axis. The x will always be on the horizontal axis, the y will always be on the vertical axis. So to plot this first point, negative 2, 0, I go to negative 2 on the x-axis, and I don't go up at all. My y is a 0, so there's my first point, negative 2, 0. Next, I need the point negative 2, 1. So I stay at negative 2 for x, but I go up to 1 for y. And for my last point, negative 2, 2, I stay at negative 2 for x, and I go up to 2 for y. So I have 3 points there, making a nice line. Now I want to connect those with a straight edge. Put arrows on both ends. And if you have room, it's always nice to label next to the line the name of the line. The name of this line is x equals negative 2. So there's kind of something special about this line if you look at it, and if you've done a good job drawing it with a straight edge, which is that this line is a vertical line. It goes straight up and down. That will always be the case when you're graphing an equation that has no y in it. So anytime you have an equation that looks like x equals c, where c is some constant, any number you like, 10, negative 5, negative 7, it will always be a vertical line. Nope, that should be a v. It will be a vertical line going through the point c, 0. So whatever x is equal to, you can find that on the x-axis, and then just draw a line straight up and down, and that will give you the line described by the equation x equals c.